homework. And most people don't like homework. So the child has to be motivated. So for me, this is the method I've used, and it has really worked well for me. I made sure that our ethnic language was their first language. I am an immigrant from Uganda, and my kids are fluent in our ethnic language. We live in Canada, and we've been able to successfully teach our kids our ethnic language. Today, I'm going to break down the most effective bilingual parenting methods, and by the end of this video, you will know the most effective method that will work for your family. Method one parent, one language. This is where one of the parents speaks one language to the children, and the other parent speaks another language to the children. For example, if you're teaching maybe French and Spanish, one parent speaks French and the other parent speaks Spanish. Both of the languages that have been spoken to the kids are minority languages, meaning those are not the common languages in the area where they live. For example, if you live in an English dominant country and you would like to teach your child French and Spanish too, one parent would speak French and another parent would speak Spanish to the children or to the child. And then that is what we call one parent, one language. So that the majority language is picked from outside the home, for example, at school, in the community, in the other activities they do. This is how it works. One parent speaks one language to the child, and the other parent speaks some other language to the child. Both of these languages are minority languages, they're not the majority languages. So this works for families that are trying to teach their children to be multilingual, like more than two languages. If you want your child to speak like three languages, for example, that is where the one parent, one language comes in, because one parent is teaching the other language, the other parent is teaching the other language, then of course the child will pick up the majority language from the community, from the school, from the friends, from the playground, like from where they associate. This method works best in two-parent households. It works when like those two parents actually are fluent in those languages they're speaking to the children. Also, it works when both of these parents are committed to their portion of the teaching. You get what I mean? Of the teaching, like of the speaking the language. By teaching, I mean speaking the language to the child or to the children. I mean like being intentional with speaking that language to the child whenever you're speaking to the child. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that each parent has to be really willing to do the fair share of their job. By job, I mean the teaching, like the speaking of the language to the child. That is what I mean. So the challenge with this method is that sometimes when one of the parents is not as committed as the other, it creates a gap. And if one of the parents is not consistent with what they are teaching, like with speaking the language to the child or to the children, it makes the child lag behind on that language. Number two, minority language at home. So this is where the parents speak the minority language at home. Minority language is the language that is not spoken by the community where you live. So for example, if you live in a community where they speak English mostly, or it's the official language, or it's the language you basically use, for example, that's what your kids use at school, the minority language would be the other language you're trying to teach your child. Here, the minority language at home is where you teach that language at home, where you only speak to the child in that language whenever you are home. This one mostly helps immigrant families, like immigrants who come from the same place. It helps parents who speak the same language. Yeah. It also helps parents who actually would like to pass down their culture to their children. Like you have the same culture and you like to pass it down to your children. It works best for those types of households. This method works best because the minority language gets a good amount of exposure. Because take an example, the day has 24 hours. The 8 hours your child is sleeping. The other 6 to 8 hours your child is at school or in transit to and from school and activities. And then you have another 8 hours. So those are the hours you have to actually be hands-on with your child so that your child can learn. So it's like a competition. You're like competing with the school, you're competing with the community, like because they also have 8 hours with your child. So that's where you maximize, because that's the time you have to teach, basically. So what you do is you speak your language or the language you're trying to teach your child all the time in those 8 hours. It's very effective because it helps the kids get a good amount of exposure to the language. If you're consistent with this method, it really works. So if you think it's good for your family, you can try it and see. And by the way, guys, I'm releasing an ebook soon about raising bilingual kids for immigrant families. If you'd like to be the first one to know about it when I release it, you can join the community. I will leave the link to the community in the description below. Please check it out and join so that you're the first one to know. Method number 3, time and place. This is where different languages are used at a different time or a different activity, where one language is associated with one activity or one place, and then the other language is associated with another activity or another place. For example, a homeschooling family might decide that during schoolwork we are going to use, maybe let's say, English, and maybe during other daily activities like maybe eating, socializing, cleaning, like normal conversations, we are going to use another language. And maybe when we are out in the open, out at the restaurant or out at the grocery store or out anywhere, we're going to use maybe another language, number 3. You get what I mean? So this method is good for single parent households where maybe one parent is managing everything, like one parent is trying to teach maybe 1, 2, 3 languages to his or her children. For homeschooling families, like you're home all day with your children, so they don't have to go to school, they don't have to go here and there. So you may say during the schoolwork time, we are using this language. And maybe during cooking and cleaning and every other activity, we are doing this language. And maybe when you go to your co-curricular activities outside the home, you're using this language. It depends on how you want it to work. It's also good for parents with multiple children, but with different language learning levels. For example, you have older children and younger children. Maybe older children are more like they are more advanced in the language, and the younger kids are really in the beginner or the learning stage. So that is where you choose to use time and place depending on what your situation is. The challenge with this method is that it's a blurry situation between consistency and it's really blurry. Like it's very hard for one to be consistent because you're switching to different languages all the time. Sometimes you can even forget to now change. You're in a place and forget to change to another language. And then the other challenge with this method is that it can be hard to hold boundaries with the language. For example, especially if your children are more interested in one language than the other, it's very hard for them. They have been speaking the majority language, for example, the one they associate with most, and then now you're introducing now the minority language, which is sometimes the one they're still learning, that gives them a bit of a hard time. So you really need to be consistent and you really need to set your boundaries that are really solid. Other than that, you may not achieve good fluency. And by the way, guys, if you're still watching this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel, it helps this video reach more parents, and it helps this channel grow. Thank you. Method number 4, target language as a subject. This is where you actually teach the target language, like how you go to school. This one helps like older children who are learning when they are older. It also helps families who have parents that are not fluent in the languages they are teaching. So it helps you, to relieve you of that burden of having to teach what you don't really understand very well. It's also good for families whose children have started late. By late, I mean if your children are 10, 11, method would work for you. Because at that age, the child has to have the interest to learn the language. The challenge with this method is that learning the language feels like homework. And most people don't like homework. So it feels like another subject at school, which is actually another subject, but yeah, it feels like homework. And then it has to have some motivation from the child. The child has to be motivated. If the child is not motivated, if the child is not interested, it may be hard for you to achieve the results because your child is already having their own preferences. So yeah, bear that in mind. The other challenge with this method is that speaking confidence may continue to be low because at that age they know they're making mistakes. At that age they know they are getting an accent. Like, you know what I mean? Like the confidence in speaking the language becomes low as they grow. So that's why it's very important to start them when they're young. When they're young, they don't really care if they make a mistake. But as they grow older, they start to be careful with their words, and so it becomes harder for them to be open to learning. Method number, target language front loading. This is where the family consciously chooses to use the target language in all interactions with their children, and intentionally delays exposure to the majority language during early childhood. And by early childhood, I mean before school age. For example, here in Canada, school age is 6 years old. So if you're doing this method, you would intentionally delay exposure to the majority language until age 6. How do you intentionally do it? Speaking to the kids in the target language for all the time. Like, as long as you're speaking to your children, you're speaking your target language prior to school age. So for me, this is the method I've used, and it has really worked well for me. I did not expose my children to the majority language until they were school age. I made sure before they went to school, they could read, they could write in our ethnic language, and they could speak it fluently before they went to school. Made sure that our ethnic language was their first language. So that's method number 5. And last but not method number 6, it's called immersion with caregivers and the community. So this is where you tap into the external exposure of the target language within your community. For example, some immigrant communities are really big. For example, the Somali community is big. The Habesha community is big. You guys can organize yourselves in a way that, like, you have a daycare where they teach that language. Maybe you have a community center where they teach your language. You get what I mean? So that you're not the only source of the language to your child. If you can afford a nanny who speaks the language you want your child to learn, if you can afford an au pair who speaks the language you want your child to learn, yeah, like someone outside your home to come and help you out. If you have a community, like, you can do community engagements. If you have like grandparents, the grandparents can come in and help when you're not there. If you have relatives that speak the language, that you can send your kids maybe somewhere. If you have a community where you guys from your community can meet up, you can decide to say, let's have a session where we teach our kids. Once someone comes in and teaches our kids our language, it really works if you have that opportunity, because it helps the child get exposure of the language from different sources. They get to know that, oh, we're actually not the only ones speaking this language. We are actually not the only ones learning this language. It is many of us who are learning this language or who speak this language, and gives them the confidence to continue speaking and to continue learning. Those are the methods that I've seen that have actually worked for people. So now I'm going to give you like a comparison summary of which method works for which type of family. So these are the methods that I've seen that work best for fluency. 1, target language front loading and minority language at home. Those two work best for, if you're aiming at fluency, those two should be your priority. The method best for flexibility is time and place, and then one parent, one language. The method best for busy parents is immersion. Busy parents, and then parents that have community generally. If you have community, if you have relatives, caregivers that really speak the language you would like them to learn, immersion would be the best for you, because it helps you reduce the load you have on yourself. And last but not least, method for late starters is target language as a subject, because now the late starters need to have a little bit of motivation in themselves. So that is where the teaching comes in. And there you have it, guys. If you're an immigrant and you're raising bilingual children, you're doing a great job. It's not easy, but it's possible. So keep doing what you're doing a great job preserving your culture, passing down your culture, passing down your language to your children. You're creating a connection with your heritage. So it's really a good job that you're doing. Pat yourself on the back and continue to grind. If you found this video helpful, please like the video so that it can reach more parents. And if you like this type of content, please subscribe to my channel for more live bilingual parenting content. Thank you guys for watching my video, and see you in my next one. Bye.